Oh, hello, Lincolnwood and parts unknown. This is Rich again, and welcome to another Lincolnwood Public Library virtual summer program. You can tell I love paints. I love painting, actually. I got my paints here on my palette. I got my canvas. I got my easel. I got the really filthy tablecloth that I use specifically in order to avoid a mess on the table. Because if I get acrylic paint on the table, I will be in big trouble. I also got my brushes, of course. You should paint too. The reason why I love to paint is because it's a way to relax. It's a way to express myself. It's I can play with paint and play with colors. It's a lot of fun. But you're asking yourself, what if I don't have brushes? I mean, these are a lot of brushes. Why don't I even have one? I want to say to you, there are more ways that you can paint besides with paintbrushes. Plenty of tools. For example, you can use your fingers. You can use cookie cutters. You can use chopsticks. You can use Q-tips. You can use cotton swabs. You can even use leaves. But today, we're going to try it with bubble wrap. Okay, are you ready? Well, before we start, we need to get our supplies ready. And this is what we need. Okay, now these are the supplies you're going to need for bubble wrap painting. First things first, you need bubble wrap. Can't do bubble wrap painting without bubble wrap. It's just logical that way. Next thing, pair of scissors will be cutting the bubble wrap. Next thing is paint. Now I use acrylic paint, but you'll want to use tempera paint because tempera paint is non-toxic, so it's kid friendly and it washes off easily. So if you make a mess of yourself, you can clean up. Next thing you'll want are some plates, paper plates specifically, because you're going to need to pour the paint somewhere and use it as a palette. You'll also want to mix the paints. Speaking of mixing the paints, you'll want to use a coffee stir or a plastic spoon. Next thing you'll want is a little water because you might end up needing to thin out the paint a little bit, but more on that later. And you will need a special paper, and this is actually for watercolor paper. Watercolor painting, and or you can use cardboard. Now, the reason why you don't use real paper, your regular paper, is that the paint will just soak through and you'll have a big old mess. You also want to use, if you're going to use cardboard, you'll want to use cardboard that is not glossy because the paint won't stick. And finally, you can use markers. There's no law against using markers to either start on your bubble wrap painting or finish it up and give it a little bit of color. All right, let's start. All right, let's do some painting. Now I used markers to make a tree, and I'm gonna add some leaves to it. So this is ready to go. So first things first, we need some bubble wrap here. Now I would say just cut into squares about, I'd say about 2 or 3 inches. There we go. And you'll want a few of these. I'll just do 2 right now. Okay. Now, next thing is the paint. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, I use acrylic paint, so I need to add a little bit of water to mine. Now, this is how I do that. Now, with tempera paint, you probably won't need to do this. A little more there. Okay. With temperate paint, more than likely, it'll be thin enough for you to use. So you may not need the water or the spoon, but just in case. Okay. Now, what I would recommend before you start, painting immediately is do a test page first. So this is what I got here. Earlier, I did a test. I tried the dark blue, and as you can see, there's still a lot of puddles there. So the paint was too thin. But the light green, I had it just right, and that's how it's supposed to look. So that's what we have. You can use a sheet of watercolor paper, another sheet, or you can use, just use cardboard. Works the same way. Now, we'll do a test. Now, for your quote-unquote brush, you'll want to wad up the bubble wrap, and you just want to dab. You don't want to just, plop it in there too heavy, or it will just look like a big old blob of paint. And that's how you do it. And then you just repeat. And I think this is pretty good. I think it's good to go. Okay. So, now that I got that working, I'm going to try out some dark green paint. Let's add a little water to that. Okay, a little bit more. And that's kind of what you're going for. This is a little thick, so let me just add a tad more. Squish those globs. Okay, I think this is ready to go. Let's get my tree ready. Now, you want to use the bubble wrap. When you're dabbing, you want to use the side that's where the bubbles are. You don't want to use the flat side, you want to use the bubble side. So let's wad that up a bit. And just dab, and then just dab it here. Do some more. Now you can let that dry a little bit, and I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to add another layer of green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this one aside, and I'm going to use this green. Because I don't want to just have dark colored leaves. I'd like to have a little bit of variety. So, as a famous artist once said, I want happy little trees. So, I'm going to do the same thing. Like I said, if you're using tempera paint's a lot thinner, so you may not need to do this. But just look at how much I'm thinning it out, and then how that looks. Oops. Now, just to let you know, you can get watercolor. You can get watercolor paper at any art store. Most of those art stores you can order online, or you can get it through Amazon. I usually use Blick to buy. but it's something you'll probably not find at like a Walgreens or something. All right, I think this is ready. Let me cut another square. And make sure I got it on the bubble side. All right. Let's add a little more here. Like I said, just do a little dab. Don't jam it in there. I think what I'll do is I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to add a little grass. So I'm going to make this a little darker. What you can do with acrylic paint is the same thing you can do with you can do the similar thing with tempera paint. Is you can mix your colors. So I'm going to mix a little bit of color here. And I think what I might do is use this to make some grass. Let me make it a little darker. And yes, I'm using a brush, but if you're using tempera paint, you can just use a spoon and just mix it thoroughly, or you can use a coffee stirrer. Either way, both will work. But just keep in mind, since I'm using acrylic and acrylic paint is thicker, I do need to add some water, and a brush is the best way of mixing the paint. All right. This might be a little dry now. I'll just use this over again. And let me get some bricks there. Now I recommend, so you don't make a mess, is to put an old tablecloth under your painting, or maybe some paper towels underneath, but or even a box top. But make sure that, because you're going to make a mess, and that's fine, but make sure you have something under this. So if you make a little bit of a mess, it can easily be cleaned up. So I think this is pretty much done, but I think I want to add some extra stuff to it. I think maybe I want some apples, so I might add some there. I know it doesn't look as good, but I can work on that a little bit more later. Maybe I can use a thicker. You may want to wait until this dries, though. No, wait till this dries first. As you can tell, it's not looking that great. So wait till your painting dries. With either acrylic or tempera, it won't take that long if you didn't soak the paper. If it's like this, it'll dry in about an hour. So wait till then, and then from there, you can add the rest of your stuff, and there you go. You have a really cool picture. That's my tree. You can make anything you want. You can do the sky around it, or you can make flowers with this method. You can make anything you want, and I want you to make anything you want. Okay? So thank you for joining me, and now I'm going to put all my paints away before I do make a mess, because look at that. I'm already got paint on myself. So I'm going to go wash my hands. At any rate, you all have a wonderful time painting.